Julia Cameron, the author of The Artist's Way, says that we all have a shadow artist inside of us. This shadow artist is a part of us that holds our deepest dreams, wishes, and potential for fulfillment. Our shadow artist is a child, and so like children it wants to play. Our inner artist may want to write, paint, dance, play, act, sing, or create something from scratch. As adults, we are often too busy to pay attention to our shadow artist. We have too many responsibilities and burdens to find the time to stop and play, or we may deny it because we may not feel good enough to create, or out of fear of others' judgment. And so instead of letting our inner artist express itself, we often end up repressing it and silencing its voice. I learned from Julia Cameron's book that if I want to connect to my shadow artist, I need to take it seriously. I need to take its ideas, interests, and dreams seriously and allow it to come to light. But this can be challenging because learning to connect to the inner child and play without purpose can feel like hard work at first. Julia Cameron says that when we start to connect to our shadow artist, this can be very scary, uncomfortable, and kind of odd, because the artist inside is a child. And so just like a child, this inner artist first needs to learn to kind of bubble before it can speak. It needs to learn to crawl before it can walk, let alone fly. And so, of course, following the shadow artist's dreams and wishes can come with a bunch of obstacles and struggles. For example, when we start to write our first poem, it might not sound poetic at all. The first draft of a book may not make sense. The first dance moves may look kind of awkward. And if you try to garden, nothing may grow. Many famous artists have said that art has a life of its own, waiting to be released. For example, Michelangelo said that David was already inside the marble block. He did not have to invent him or envision him. He only released him. Any type of creation or art is waiting for us to come by and give it a life, to release it and make it seen. It can be overwhelming to stand in front of a canvas or a crafting station and just create. Sometimes we get so caught up in our head that we don't even know where to start, or our perfectionism sets in and we get too overwhelmed by all of our grand aspirations or others' potential criticism. And so sometimes one way to start connecting to our shadow artist is to take a step back and take time to listen for its ideas, to watch its dreams unfold in our mind, or dream its wishes into being. When the shadow artist comes out, it can be a very healing experience, but at the same time it's easy to let fears or struggles take over, which push it right back into its closet. Often thieves of joy like comparison, perfectionism, and exposing yourself to criticism of others can push your artist right back into the shadows and stop the healing process of your inner child. And instead we end up creating new wounds. We re-traumatize our inner child again with the same shame or judgment we may have experienced before. According to Julia Cameron, when we cannot express our true self and let our inner artist emerge, it's mostly out of fear of abandonment. We all have a need for belonging, to be loved, to be liked, to be seen as worthy and valuable, to be part of a group. And so we can have a fear that expressing our true nature, being vulnerable and expressing our inner world, may isolate us from those we want to belong to and end in criticism. Growing up, I was once mocked by a friend in front of all of our shared friends about my painting style. The thing about criticism is that other voices, whether it's a parent, a friend, a partner, often get internalized. And so often they become our own voice, full of negative beliefs about ourselves. And when we hold on to these negative inner voices that tell us not to create or tie us to a sense of fear or shame, we often end up hiding our inner artist in the shadows, living in regret and a lot of unfulfilled potential. But what I found for myself is that it is far harder and more painful to live with a hidden shadow artist inside that longs to be expressed than it is to do work of expressing it. Creation comes with failure. It means being a bad artist sometimes. It means making a fool of ourselves or falling. But paradoxically, the more the shadow artist gets expressed, the more we dare to create and express our inner world, the more we tend to heal and the more fulfilled we feel. Julia Cameron says that every shadow artist that first comes to light goes through an ugly duckling stage in their art before they grow into a swan one day. We are creators at heart, and so our shadow artist is meant to find its way to the light. And if it doesn't, some part of us often ends up suffering. Nietzsche, for example, said that we are meant to be creative. When we don't make some time to create, we go against who we truly are. Nietzsche saw art as the highest form of self-expression. And what he meant by that is when we create, when we make art, we express our soul. We express who we truly are, which means we self-actualize our authentic selves. And what we create then is soul-driven. Our creations become an expression of our essence. And sometimes our essence is deep pain, and sometimes we express our deepest wishes and dreams. Viktor Frankl, for example, wrote his famous book Man's Search for Meaning in his Mind, which expressed deep pain and suffering, but at the same time kept his soul alive while he was stuck in a concentration camp. Frida Kahlo was heavily injured in an accident and externalized her inner pain in her famous paintings. The Sufi poet Rumi was deeply moved by a mystical encounter he had with another person and spent a lot of his life writing poetry about an otherworldly love. I think we can sometimes over-intellectualize creation. I used to think that my art had to make sense to be worthy of creating. This is when the logic brain is running our world. The logic brain is what Freud called the voice of reason, our critic, our judge. The artist brain is the creator, the poet, the inventor, the voice of our inner child. And we can sometimes experience a conflict between these two brains. A logic brain will look for useful or productive ideas for our creation, and our artist brain instead loves doing things that do not make sense at all, but are fun. I had to learn to silence my logic brain and allow myself to create for the sake of creating, to be odd, to not make sense, and to play without purpose. Einstein, for example, said that the intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. And when we want to let our shadow artist emerge, we have to see the sacred gift in the intuitive artist mind and let it take over for a while. And Julia Cameron has a few ways to trick the logic brain into taking a back seat for a moment and letting the artist brain come out and play. And while all of these tricks are in her book, now I wanted to talk about my favorite trick, which is what she calls the artist state. An artist state is not about what things look like on the surface. It's about what things feel like. On these artist states, it's important to listen to the inner child and do whatever brings it joy, even if it's odd. Sometimes you may get an unexpected visitor on your artist state. But most of the time, it's only you and your shadow artist, nobody else. We all carry a gift inside that we are meant to share, and our shadow artist holds the key to what we are meant to create. All we need to do is listen for its voice and let it show us the way. One of my favorite artist playdates are visiting a local community garden in the morning to pick a few herbs for breakfast. Afterwards, I sometimes like to go to a farmer's market to get some fresh food. I can get caught up in my head in my life and get overwhelmed or overburdened with too many plates to juggle. But for me, my artist dates are my time to slow down and just be. And an artist date does not have to be expensive. For example, most of my artist dates either cost nothing or less than $10. For example, I really love to paint, And painting can be very expensive because supplies can be quite costly. But what I found is that no matter what your interests or passions are, there's always a way to make it work. For example, even though I don't like Facebook, I find quite a lot of free or cheap art supplies on Facebook Marketplace. So one of my favorite past artist dates was when I visited a painter's studio who was giving away everything, and I could just roam through all of those beautiful brushes and papers and canvases and see what brought me joy and what I wanted to play with. And if you need any inspiration for artist dates, Julia Cameron recommends to make a list of all the lives you would have wanted to live and allow yourself to live these lives in this life, such as being a photographer, being a clown, being a dancer, being an artist, being an epic adventurer, whatever you feel you may have missed out on. Sometimes we cannot act great change or dedicate much time to our inner child, but even the tiniest change in routines, making a little room to play, can be very healing. Joseph Campbell wrote, "Follow your bliss and doors will open where there were no doors before." When we connect to our shadow artist and give it a life, we transform. And so consequently, our life often transforms too, usually to more joy and fulfillment. The Artist Way says that we are all artists and creators. Art can express what cannot be expressed with words. It can uncover a part of us that is deeply buried inside and longs to be expressed. And when we allow what is hidden to come to light, when we allow our shadow artist to create whatever it wants to create, we often find some type of meaning and peace. We all have a soul with a shadow artist inside that longs to be taken to the light. The Smiths say that there is a light that never goes out, and I think that even when we missed a few chances in life, we always get another opportunity to turn around and find that light that truly brings us joy and that then never goes out.